topic. So, how rich is too rich? MacKenzie Scott, the ex-wife of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, she recently gave away nearly $3 billion. In a blog post, she said that she was troubled by the concentration of wealth among a small group of people. So do you think there should be a cap on how rich you are allowed to be? And what would that look like? Riaz, what are your thoughts?
I love the gesture by MacKenzie Scott on this. And when I heard the question, do you think there should be a cap on how rich you should be? I don't think so at all. I mean, if you're going to work for building your wealth, I think that's an excellent thing. You hustle hard, you get rewarded. But with what MacKenzie's doing right now, I think it's so fascinating that she's kind of reinventing the philanthropic game where she's not using a traditional foundation. She's surprising organizations, universities with an email saying, you have been chosen to be a recipient of, in some cases, $40 million. And my initial reaction was, imagine being on the other side of that and getting that email and think, okay, what kind of scam is this? This is Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. You've been chosen. Does the Nigerian prince come in and deliver this 40 million once you give your bank account? Like, what's really going on here? And when I thought about the money she's giving, the opportunity that I see in this is not a cap on how rich you are, but maybe a focus on how you track their transformation, because foundations have that accountability of here's where the money's being used. MacKenzie's kind of reinventing the game and granting huge amounts of money to organizations that need it. But it would be so awesome to see here's what they did with it and have that follow-up story to invite others to have that incentive that, yes, I want to give back.
But Riaz, I hear what you're saying. I think it's great what she's doing. But what she's doing, the money that she's giving is to things like organizations, people in need. Like that is the disconnect. How is it that someone can give away that many billions and there's this much need? Where does the balance come out? There are some people who say that the reason why wealth limitation needs to exist is because if it existed, then the wealth distribution would make it so that there's less need. Like, the fact of the matter is there's so much need. She's given away this much money and people still need billions more. That's obscene.
You know what is obscene?
Obscene's the right word for it. Absolutely. I mean, the fact that there's so much wealth in the hands of this tiny group of people. The famous quote is, there's no great fortune without a great crime. And I'm not saying that Jeff Bezos has done anything illegal, but I think that there's something unethical, something, as Lainey said, obscene about paying these warehouse workers a pittance, working them so hard that they're afraid to take bathroom breaks because they're not going to hit their targets. Creating a work environment that's so terrible that your entire workforce is turning over every 8 months. And you are rich beyond imagining, rich to the point that you are going into space and avoiding paying taxes. So, I mean, I think that I don't know if I want the government involved. That scares me a little, for the government to say, you can only amass this level of money and then we're just going to tax you to oblivion. But I think that there should be some kind of ethical obligation where if my warehouse workers are earning X, I shouldn't be able to earn more than 1 million times X or whatever it's going to be. Because yes, hard work should be rewarded, hustle should be rewarded, innovation should be rewarded. Jeff Bezos changed the game, changed the world, certainly changed the literary world when he started, when Amazon became the place to get your books. But the idea that he has so much, he could give away $1 million every minute of the day and not come close to tapping out. So I think that, and it would be nice if people just sort of felt that, if they felt that moral obligation in their own hearts instead of being scolded into doing it or shamed into doing it. But I just feel like whatever it takes to get some of these white men, old white men, to start redistributing some of the money to communities that for a variety of reasons, including systemic racism, could not accumulate that kind of money, no matter how hard they hustled or how much they tried.
Have you all heard about those studies that they've done that wealth the wealth actually reduces your capacity for empathy. So there's like scholarship on this. Scientific American has published articles on it where, to your point, like Jennifer, you're talking about communities that are in need. Like, you know, there is something to the richer you get, and we're talking about obscene wealth. Like, you know, when we talk about hustle and like you should work hard and earn what you get, it really doesn't apply, frankly, to people like us. Nobody's saying put a limit on somebody who makes like $200,000 a year, $60,000 a year. We're talking about lots of zeros here when we talk about the cap. So, you know, there's something that comes with the more zeros are in your bank account, the less feeling you have. And those people, those very few, use their lack of feeling and their influence and their power and their money to affect legislation. So what happens is that they lobby the government, they get bills passed that shut down opportunity for other people to get zeros. It is, to me, it is a crisis at this point. And the world is in crisis. Pandemic, environment, and there are very wealthy people who are suppressing our opportunity to actually turn things around.
It's so complicated, though, because, and you're right. It's the gap between the rich and the poor is astronomical, especially in the United States, and that's unthinkable. But it's also, like, you just have to sort of, I mean, I would love to be able to say, like, can we just not have any more billionaires? That there's something that kicks in at that.
Is that your cap, Cynthia?
That. I think that's my cap. I think
that's 999 million?
Exactly.
So 999 million is your cap.
I think that's my cap. The world doesn't need billionaires. That means that people can still aspire to be successful business, business people.
Sure.
I feel uncomfortable with the government stepping in, but I just think you also shouldn't have this abject poverty. And I like that more and more countries are playing around with this idea of a living wage for, you know, jobs like, for example, fast food in the fast food industry, or presumably in like warehouses, like what we're talking about. And they're baking in this idea that you have maybe $20 an hour that you're making, maybe a bit more, and you get holidays and you get benefits and you get all these things. And I think that it's shown to be very successful. I mean, maybe that's the answer too, that if you get to a certain point, you are obligated to make sure that your workers are making a commiserate wage. And I think, Jennifer, that's what you were sort of hinting at, because something has to give at a certain point.
Yes, I agree completely.
Go ahead, Riaz.
It's such a complex issue. And I just want to build on, you know, Jennifer, you threw in something that's great, the ethical obligation. Lainey, you're saying, you know, it's obscene. And Cynthia, you're talking about how you serve the greater good. And in the entire issue of this, I think the great part of what MacKenzie Scott is doing and has shown us is it can be done in a different way. And she didn't use a foundation. She just circumvented the system and said, I'm going to choose, I'm going to see that need. And somebody's got to go first with this. There is no easy answer with it. She knows there's a serious problem, but she's showing there's a different way to do this. And I think that's the big win of what she's done.
Yeah, can we just talk for a minute, though? She's giving billions away, and her ex-husband is going into space for 11 minutes. I mean, you know, it's like, right, exactly. I mean, let's leave him there and let her give the rest of that fortune out. I mean, because just the idea that you could spend millions every day and still have billions left when you died, something is broken. That speaks to a broken system. We need to pay workers a living wage, whether they're in a warehouse or they're serving your coffee or your fast food, like whatever it is. We need everyone to have health insurance. Like, going to the hospital should not have you worried that you're going to bankrupt your family. And oh God, it's you know, I'm going to start, you know, giving you the Communist Manifesto in a couple of minutes, but it is upsetting. It is upsetting to see people with that much money seeming to feel no sense of obligation, no sense of community, no sense of shame.
Mm-hmm.